All right. Welcome. We're doing a special late show edition of the Team Rivalry Show. We'll call this the College Football Hangout Show on Team Rivalry. Thank you to Team Rivalry for hosting. Because I host the Team Rivalry Show. That's why that joke is funny. So excuse me. While I get comfortable here. So decided to do a little itsy beatsy teensy weensy little stream here on the Team Rivalry Show. It's the last college football game of the season that I think anyone gives anything resembling a care. No one gives a crap about the national championship. All right, I'm sorry. No one cares about it. It's, we've seen it a million times at this point. Alabama versus Georgia. I mean, I get it. Like, they were the two best teams in the country. That's how it goes. The two best teams in the country get to go, and they are. And congratulations to them. I don't know that there are very many teams in the country that keep up with Georgia. Alabama, I actually thought looked soft a little against Cincinnati there. But nevertheless, they're going to the college football national championship. So good for them. We're going to watch some LSU and Kansas State just because I never watch these teams. And Kansas State is actually about to score again. Kansas State has a first and goal inside the LSU 2-yard line. So they are about to score again. They've already scored once. It's 7-0 right now, as you can see. I didn't watch a single game from these two during the regular season. And I think the last time I watched a Kansas State game in full was probably when they played Michigan in the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl back in, when was that, 2014? 2013 maybe, because thrown to the far side of the end zone. It's incomplete. Looking for Kenny Warner. I'm listening to the announcers while I'm calling this. But anyway, I think the last time I watched a Kansas State game was back when they played Michigan, the Buffalo Wild Wings Bowl in 2013, 2014. I can't remember when that was exactly. We can take a look at Team Rivalry when this goes to commercial here in a little bit and see. Oh, goodness gracious. What a year. What a year in the Big Ten, eh? So Michigan finishes the season 12-2. Kansas State scores a touchdown here. That was a pretty easy play. But Michigan finishes the season Big Ten champions, 12-2. No doubt about it, took an absolute beating in the Orange Bowl. Just did. That's how it goes. Sometimes you lose some, and sometimes you get blown out, and that's just how that kind of thing works. And it's unfortunate for Michigan. For me, I'm a huge Michigan fan, obviously. If you've watched even 30 seconds of the show, then you know how bitterly disappointed I was in that game. But that's how it goes. Michigan State and Ohio State have both come to the college football playoff, which was, really, really great for their programs. And both of them, Ohio State won it, but both of them do have blowout losses, shutouts even. To, I believe both of them. Oh no, Clemson shut out Ohio State that one year, and then Alabama shut out Michigan State. So hey, at least Michigan didn't do that bad. At least we didn't do as bad as Michigan State during that one year. Just taking a quick look at Twitter while we're on commercial break here. We can check Team Rivalry in a little bit, but I wanted to get the word out that we're live streaming right now. We're live streaming LSU vs Kansas State. Oh, wait, I should hashtag that because that's how hashtag works. That's how hashtags work. LSU vs Kansas State is not even trending. Yes. Hashtag Kansas State. Kansas State is trending. Okay. Not trending. We're live streaming LSU versus Kansas State over on YouTube. Come join us for some chat and football fun. Come join us and enjoy the last game of the season anyone even sort of cares about. Hashtag college football. CFP playoff. Hashtag what even is the bowl game? That's the thing. I don't even know what the bowl game is. The Tax Act Texas Bowl. Hashtag Texas Bowl. Okay. There we go. So I guess the big news of the day, or not really news, but the big rumor is that some pundits are linking Jim Harbaugh to a couple of NFL jobs, notably at Chicago. And I don't even believe for a second that that's actually something that Jim Harbaugh is going to do right now. Yeah. Ohio State needs Harbaugh in Michigan for the long haul. Our fans will start a GoFundMe to pay his extension. He finally figured out how to beat you guys, and I understand that you guys had a down year on defense, whatever that means. Because defense isn't exactly relevant in the modern game. No offense. That's not entirely true, but I steam a little, whatever. Yeah, Harbaugh's not going anywhere, but also Ohio State. I don't know that you want Harbaugh to leave either, or I don't know that you want Harbaugh to stay. Rather, is what I mean, because, like I said, he finally figured out how to beat you guys, and the entire culture of Michigan football has changed. So that's what I'm going to say about that. If Michigan beats Michigan State and Purdue, I will purchase a custom jersey of the most liked reply of a Michigan football player. Oh, this is for college basketball. Right? Well, maybe that's actually for college football. I don't know. All right. So game's back on. Let's see what we got here. LSU lining up at their own 8-yard line while Brian Kelly watches in a press box. That's going to be interesting, isn't it? Oh, he's talking to the announcers right now. That's why he's in the press box. I was just like, why do you have him up there? What an interesting move. I mean, just in case you were wondering whether or not Notre Dame is relevant, or at least a national contender, it turns out their best coach ever used them as a stepping stone. At least I think he's statistically has the most wins of any Irish coach, I believe. All right, LSU 2nd and 10 on their own 9. They're going to fake it to the wideout was running a jet stream. They faked it to him and then handed it off, and the running back went right up the middle and got stuffed. That's ridiculous. I hate that play. I hate that so much. I shouldn't use hate. Hate's a strong word. But why in the world would you fake the jet and just to hand it off up the middle? I mean, I get that you're looking to fake out the defense, but did you really buy yourself enough time with that kind of a fake? Is everyone all of a sudden moving to the right and then opening up the middle? All right, 3rd and 10, their own 9. Quarterback's moving left. He throws a bomb downfield. It's intercepted at the Kansas State 40, at the LSU 40. So Kansas State about to start running away with this one. Jaden Reed. It looks like Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has made a final decision to return to Michigan State and use his last year of eligibility. They have unfinished business to take care of. Interesting. Yeah. Reed seen okay, so here's something interesting. Stunning decision. Reed would have likely been a round 2 or round 3 pick at the latest. That's pretty good. That's good money. I mean, you're still talking millions of dollars. The NFL is extremely hesitant to draft fifth-year senior wide receivers early, especially if you're going to be 23 years old at the time, not to mention the risk of injury. I don't know who's advising him on this, but very shocking. So this must mean I don't know a whole lot about Jaden Reed specifically. I know a lot about where Michigan players are in terms of their eligibility. But Jaden Reed, I think, is a senior, and it must be that he's coming back for his 5th year. So he's a 5th-year senior now, or will be coming back for his 5th-year senior season. Kansas State, starting at their own 40, runs it up the middle, got about 3 yards on it. So Jaden Reed had a pretty good season for sure. Interesting little note here that the NFL is extremely hesitant to draft 5th-year wide receiver seniors early. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. So he could potentially, if history is repeated here, could potentially be losing out on a few $1 million. Who knows? All right, Kansas State on their own. Oh, pass over the middle. Tight end's got it, and he's all the way down to the 10-yard line. Oh, my goodness. So Kansas State's about to run away with this, like I was saying. Ooh, goodness. Just looking through some Twitter stuff. David Ajabo, one of Michigan's star defensive end, opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, announced that he is foregoing his final year and moving on to the NFL. Can't say I blame him. I've talked about this. I've talked about this a little bit in terms of how I feel about players opting out during bowl games, and then how I feel about coming back for your senior season and all that. Yeah, I mean, if someone had told me that I could skip my senior year and immediately get a job paying me $3-4 million a year, bye. Kansas State on the 12-yard line, running it up the middle. He's got lots of green. Gets about 8 yards on the run there. Or it should be about 3rd and 2 now. Goodness gracious. So what I'm taking from this is that LSU, just 2 years removed from a national championship, were all hopped up on steroids at the time, and they all just decided to get clean over the last season. Maybe. I really hope I don't get removed for that. But yeah, I don't really understand. I've never seen a team collapse quite this much. I mean, obviously, 2019 Michigan went 9-3 regular season, losses to who was it? Wisconsin, Penn State. I think this is going to be a Kansas State touchdown. Man, I don't know how he got in. He looked out, but they're counting it. It was a touchdown. So it's going to be 20-0 now. But I remember back in 2019, Michigan lost to Wisconsin, got blown out at Wisconsin, and then lost to Penn State. But they started to kind of figure something out, and then we're on a roll. Absolutely obliterated Michigan State. And then obviously got destroyed again by Ohio State. So that team went 9-3 and then had the bowl game against, oh my goodness. Yeah, they played Alabama, of all teams. because Alabama was in a down year and they still crushed Michigan. What was that, like 36-16, I think? Michigan and MSU, frankly, not exactly strangers to getting blown out by SEC teams. But frankly, no one's a stranger to getting blown out by SEC teams, including other SEC teams. That's kind of the weird debate about it all, isn't it? What does the SEC have that the rest of the conferences don't? Why is it that they're constantly bigger, faster, stronger? What is it? From Adam Rittenberg on Twitter. Jim Harbaugh NFL situation, as reported by Bruce Feldman. The Raiders are the likeliest spot if Jim Harbaugh wants to return to the NFL. He started his coaching career with the Oakland Raiders. Really? Interesting. Before Michigan, he and his wife lived on the West Coast. I'd heard Giants job could have interested him if it was open. Well, that's I don't think that the Raiders would be a good spot for Jim Harbaugh. But that said, I don't think that any professional team would be a good spot. I mean, actually, I think maybe not the Lions. No, I don't think the Lions would be a good spot. Chicago, from what I've heard, Harbaugh's actually already got like ties to Chicago, so I could understand that if he really wanted to do that. I get it. Yeah. So Twitter's a little quiet tonight. Must mean that nobody really cares about this game. All right. Final overall records for all Big Ten teams. Looks like we got, okay, so number 2, Michigan, 12-2. Has a really good season. Ohio State, 11-2. So Michigan has the most wins this season of any Big Ten team, which is really good for that program. That's a really good step in the right direction. And I think next season you're going to see a lot of the same thing. I think Michigan's going to be good. They've got a lot of really promising freshmen. The thing is that I think Ohio State's going to be better. I think that Ryan Day, the thing that you'll see with Ryan Day is that he's not going to take any more crap on defense. I mean, you heard him say it during the Rose Bowl at halftime, where he said giving up 35 points and a half is ridiculous. And it is. It absolutely is. They absolutely had no business winning that game. You could argue that if Utah's starting quarterback, excuse me while I clean off my screen here, if Utah's starting quarterback, doesn't go down with an injury, then Utah probably wins that game. Number 10, Michigan State at 11-2. So the big three being Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. And that's really cool. You like to see that. I like to see that personally because being a Michigan fan, I'm liking seeing the Michigan teams perform so well. Western Michigan had a good year. They went to a bowl game and they obliterated Nevada in it. I think Eastern and Central both lost their bowl games, but that'll happen. Eastern is Eastern and Central is Central. But Western has the most recent NY6 bowl game of any MAC team, I believe. So, do they? Pretty sure they do. We need to start getting MAC conference data up on Team Rivalry. That would be pretty cool. I'm gonna get this over to, here we go. Just doing some administrative stuff on the side here while I'm getting this figured out. All right. Next up is Iowa at 10-4. That's pretty surprising to me just because, I mean, they win 10 games and have 4 losses. That's just kind of crazy. I mean, Iowa is a pretty solid team, and I feel for Iowa. They got all the way up to number 2, and I don't think for a second that it wasn't that they couldn't handle the pressure. I think that they just, didn't expect Purdue to play spoiler like they have been doing. I mean, Purdue, Purdue's beaten Ohio State during one of their better years. They obviously beat Michigan State while Michigan State was still looking for, a surprising but potential playoff berth earlier this season. Purdue is just that team that does that kind of thing. I think the problem was, though, is that Iowa wasn't prepared to take that kind of a loss and didn't really have the attitude to overcome it. Although they run on the field holding hands, so they have to like each other. Minnesota 9-4, Purdue 9-4, Wisconsin 9-4. You know what I want to see? I want to see. I'm going to look up the records of SEC teams compared to Big Ten teams, because if you look at this Big Ten overall record, there's not a lot of disparity between the good and the average teams. And I'm thinking teams like, okay, so you've got the really good teams having 11 wins, at least 11 wins, that being Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. Then you get into the 9 and 10 win range. And yeah, there's something to be said about, having double-digit victories. That's definitely a big deal, and Iowa should be proud of that. But when you look at, the difference between 9 and 10 wins, I don't know. I see 10 and I think, okay, 10. Like, yeah, 10 and 2, depending on who the two were and what your ranking is, what does that get you? So I can't remember what bowl game Iowa went to, but I know they lost it. They lost to Kentucky in their bowl game. So, Kentucky being an SEC team beat Iowa. But the interesting thing about that is how 4 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4 teams are in the 9 and 10 win range. And all 4 of them are from the East Division, or the West Division rather. And all 4 of them were in the running for a spot in the Big Ten championship: Iowa, Minnesota, Purdue, and Wisconsin, late in the season. So with a 9-4 record, that to me says these teams weren't constantly winning and just hadn't played each other yet. These teams were constantly losing big games and keeping other teams in it. I mean, think about it. Iowa was in the Big Ten championship because Wisconsin lost, not because Iowa played into it. Yeah, I mean, what's the old adage? The old saying, lucky or luck is just preparation meeting opportunity. And Iowa was, for better or worse, prepared. And they had the opportunity. So, but without Wisconsin, that opportunity doesn't come. So they didn't exactly play their way into the Big Ten championship. Now, you could also say that Michigan loses to Michigan State. Michigan State then is in the driver's seat for the Big Ten championship spot from the East. But then they lose a head scratcher to Purdue. And that gets Michigan even with them. And then Michigan State loses the blowout to Ohio State. If Michigan State doesn't lose to Purdue, then Ohio State goes to the Big Ten championship. No, because Ohio State would have had to beat Michigan. Yeah, so if Michigan beats Ohio State, but then Michigan State loses to Ohio State, no, because Michigan State and Ohio State would have both had one loss, and Ohio State still would have had the tiebreaker. So no, Ohio State would have gone. So it's because Purdue beat Michigan State that Michigan went to the Big Ten championship. Kind of. I mean, that said, when it came down to it and Sparty knocked themselves out of the conversation by losing to Purdue and then losing big to Ohio State, LSU's finally on the move here. They're about almost to the 50-yard line. But if Purdue or Michigan State needed to not lose to Purdue and then not lose to Ohio State, and they did both of those things. So the opportunity was there. Michigan State lost to Purdue the very next week. and there was plenty of football left to be played. So at that point, that feels, when Michigan beat Ohio State, that feels to me like Michigan played into the Big Ten championship, whereas Iowa on the very last week had to wait for someone to lose. Now, if it's the week prior and Wisconsin loses and then Iowa wins and then Iowa wins their last game, then it's like, okay, yeah, Iowa has a few losses and Wisconsin has a few more losses, and that kind of worked out to Iowa's favor. That gets, and Iowa deserves that shot at the Big Ten championship. But with it being the very last week of the season, it just really kind of feels, it just kind of feels like Iowa happened into the championship, not really like they played into it. They deserved it because they were in the right position at the right time, but they happened into it. All right. Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud said he didn't need any extra motivation due to the magnitude of the moment. Quote, "This is the Rose Bowl, man. This is where legendary games are being played. If you aren't motivated to play, I'll question your love of the game." Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm going to quote that. Quote retweet. Quote retweet. Whoops. Absolutely agree with Stroud on this. The hashtag Rose Bowl. Computer's taking them to load. That's not it. The Rose Bowl, there we go, is the oldest and greatest of them all. It may not have been a playoff game. To be honest, it was far more entertaining. Hashtag Ohio State. Hashtag Utah. You know, and in games like that, if I'm Utah, obviously I'm sad that I lost the Rose Bowl. But I'm excited that I was, but that was a football game. But that was a real and a really, really good football game. You know, I'm just excited to have been. If I'm on Utah's team, and I'm not, obviously, I would be excited to have been on that team and played in that game. Yes, I absolutely would have wanted to win it, and it felt like we were going to win it, and we kind of let it slip, but, injuries and stuff like that, and then, also Ohio State's just a motivated monster. LSU gets past the 50 all the way down to the Kansas State 40-yard line. Great run by, I think that's their quarterback, Kirkland. Is that his name? I can't see his jersey. But just being a part of that experience would have been awesome. And it really sets your guys up good for next year. I think Utah is going to be pretty good next year. I don't know how much they lose on offense and defense, but with all the tragedy surrounding that team, the couple of players who passed away, they really stuck together and played some pretty solid football this year. I mean, at one point it looked like Oregon was going to run away with the Pac-12, and Utah beat them twice. So Utah kind of comes out of obscurity, but they did. Now, I was going to look up, the SEC's record. Looking up all of the conference records, conference standings, and all that. Oh, my nose itches so bad. All right, let's go to SEC, where it just means more. Okay, so right off the bat, you got Georgia at 8-0 in the conference, Alabama at 7-1. Now, this doesn't include the SEC championship game. That's that's the opposite sides of the conference. That's East versus West. Georgia in the East, Alabama in the West. Looking at the Big Ten, Michigan was 11-1. Iowa was 9-3. The second place teams, and the SEC West can relate to this. Kentucky, it was 10-3 overall, 5-3 in conference. So let's look at the Big Ten standings real quick. My point that I want to make with this, and I'm going to make it before I go through all of the data here, is that I think from top to bottom, you're going to see a lot more disparity between the really good teams in the SEC versus the really bad teams. Whereas in the Big Ten, there wasn't a whole lot of disparity between the really good teams and the really bad teams. I mean, you had Michigan and then Ohio State, and then what was Michigan State? Michigan State was 10-2. So let's take Michigan and Ohio State at Michigan was 11-1. Ohio State was 10-2. So Michigan State was also 10-2. So you've got Ohio State, Michigan State, and Michigan. 11-1, 10-2, 10-2. Then you have a whole bunch of teams that are 9-4 or 9-3. So that 9-3 is a good record, but a lot of the teams have it. And so they're beating each other up to get there. Okay, here we go. So conference records. Michigan, 8-1 in conference. Iowa, 7-2. Ohio State, 8-1. The next best team in the West was Minnesota at 6-3. Huge disparity. Already between the first two teams in the two best teams in the East versus the two best teams in the West, Michigan and Ohio State versus Iowa and Minnesota, you have 5 combined losses between the two best teams in the West and 2 combined losses between the two best teams in the East. So 3 fewer losses for the East. Let's look at the third best team. Michigan State was 7-2 in conference. Wisconsin was 6-3. Now 6-3 and 7-2 are fairly similar. You're talking about one game there. What's the big deal? I mean, one game is a big deal, but at the end of the season, when you've both played your New Year's 6 games and it's all said and done, you're looking back at the records. It's kind of close, right? Yeah, sure, okay. Let's look at the overall record. Wisconsin was 9-4. Michigan State was 11-2. Big difference. Big difference. Next up, Penn State 4-5 in conference, and then you've got Purdue 6-3. Penn State 7-6 overall, Purdue 9-4. Big difference. Big difference. Illinois 4-5, Maryland 3-6. Illinois was 5-7 overall, Maryland was 7-6. That's the same. They're similar at that point, except Maryland got a bowl game, Illinois didn't. Nebraska didn't get a bowl game. They were 1-8. But there's not much of a difference between Rutgers at 3-9 or Nebraska at 3-9 and Rutgers at 5-8 when neither of you get a bowl game. One of you is closer, but Nebraska had top 25, top 10 teams on the brink there for a little bit. So the point I made the point already, that being that the disparity in the Big Ten is a lot closer than it is at the SEC. The SEC, those teams are like, for starters, just looking at the SEC West, you have Alabama at 7-1, Ole Miss at 6-2. Those are similar conference records. Obviously, Alabama gets the nod. And then you've got Arkansas at 4-4. Now, Arkansas is ranked number 21 at 9-4. So those 4 losses are very different than, let's say, Purdue's 4 losses. So I think Purdue lost to Illinois at one point. No, that's not right. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, so the SEC is the better conference. And that sucks for me to say, but it just is. It is the better conference right now. Um, they're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. Except for LSU, apparently, until it comes down to culture problems, then the SEC is the better conference. All right, so looking at this interesting tweet here on the Twitterverse. Cade McNamara is the first Michigan quarterback to lead the Wolverines to a Big Ten title with the opportunity to play for a national championship in nearly 3 decades. Fans who have taken him for granted will eventually rue the day in which they did. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Not sure how anyone be so critical of a quarterback that won their conference. You have to at least be a little good to do that. Hashtag go blue. Oh, yeah. Michigan podcast says the Harbaugh NFL stuff reeks of a contract renegotiation ploy, especially with the entire staff staying intact when several had options elsewhere. Those guys all took a chance coming to Michigan with Jimmy on the hot seat, so I doubt he'd turn around and leave them in a lurch. Yeah, not when he also just used his paycheck. Oh, LSU touchdown. Ooh, big pass. Big pass there. Wow. That was a long ball thrown right there. Wow, great play. 21-7 now. Yeah, I don't see how a coach who used his entire bonus structure to pay the salaries of the athletic department would then leave that athletic department. It seems like he's pretty attached to the people there. So, unless I'm wrong, which I don't think I am. Michigan, Georgia drew an audience of 17.2 million people on ESPN, peaking at 20.5 million, making the Orange Bowl the most viewed non-NFL sporting event across any network in 2021. Michigan can now claim to have played in 4 of the 6 most watched college football games last year. Wow. It's a brand. It's still a brand. And they still play against the better brands, too. Georgia's a great brand of football. Ohio State's a great brand of football. Michigan State is a great brand of football. Well, not historic, but certainly in modern days, sure. Yeah. The Rose Bowl had 16.6 million viewers, more than both semifinal games. Orange Bowl had 16.5, Cotton Bowl had 16.1. Really? Because I just read a tweet saying that you're wrong. Well, who knows anymore? I've seen. Wow. Okay. I mean, it was New Year's Eve. I bet any other day that the Orange Bowl pulls 1,000,000 plus. Ratings for any game Michigan plays are boosted by OSU and MSU fans tuning in to watch them lose. Well, I mean, that's why Michigan fans watch OSU and MSU games. That's why I did. Now I watch them because I'm in sports broadcasting, and now I kind of care and want them all to win. But it used to be that I only ever watched Michigan State and Ohio State games because I want to watch them lose. I'm not going to respond to that tweet. That guy's a little weird. Oh, boy. And Kansas State's about to return the opening kickoff for a touchdown. No, he is down. The country's best quarterback will return to Ohio State next season with a California-sized chip on his shoulder. Yeah. Somebody commented saying, wow, I didn't know Bryce Young was transferring to OSU. Crazy. See, now this is where if Ohio State's defense were any better, I would say that I would have thought that an Alabama-Ohio State matchup would be interesting because I think CJ Stroud is numbers-wise going to be or would be the quarterback. Barstool Spartans posting highlights of the Michigan-Georgia game. That's just kind of weird. Weird. Your name says Spartans, but I'm seeing Michigan, Georgia highlights. Is that a mistake, or did you forget who you're covering? That's what I should say. Did you forget who you're supposed to be covering? Why not? I'm having some fun with it, so why not give it a little fun there, razz them a little bit. Going on 42 minutes here on the stream. Not really trying to accomplish anything specific with the stream, just hanging out, watching some football. It's 21-7, Kansas State. Kansas State has the ball, 5 seconds left in the half. Oh, goodness. 5 seconds left in the half. That means I got to figure out what I'm doing for halftime. I don't know that I'm going to do anything for halftime. The Washington football team announces it will unveil its new name and logo on February 2nd. I don't care. Alabama opens as a 2.5. Oh, Kansas State's going for like a 54-yard field goal attempt, and he completely missed. Wow. Completely missed it. All right, so LSU and Kansas State are at halftime. So I'll just chill here for a little bit, see if I want to go on or not. Alabama opened as a 2.5-point underdog against Georgia, according to @FoxBet. Alabama's record against Georgia as an underdog is 5-1. Nope, sorry, 3-0. Alabama as an underdog since 2008 is 5-1. Alabama as an underdog to just Georgia since 2008 is 3-0. They've scored 206 points and allowed 118. So basically what you've done is you've just given Alabama the win by favoring Georgia, which, you know, the sports books have to do what the sports books are going to do, I guess. I don't know. I don't really know how they work. But, I mean, they're just going to set the line, and then whatever happens, happens. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? Will Johnson versus Jaden Reed in the Big House next year. Yeah, well, unfortunately, depending on who you're rooting for, the Michigan State game is actually back in East Lansing again next year. It's I don't really know why that's the case. I don't know why they're doing 2 years in a row, although in what was it? In 2019, it was at Michigan, and then 2020 it was at Michigan. So I guess they have to do back-to-back home games for Michigan State, because I guess it's only fair at that point. But now you've got Michigan State and Ohio State as road games. And I was under the impression that they didn't want to do that. But, you know, that's just how the the chips fell, I guess. I don't know. That's just how scheduling works out. Zach Shaw, who I believe is a Michigan reporter, Michigan beat reporter, maybe? Not entirely sure. November 20th, Ohio State beats Michigan State by 49. November 27th, Michigan beats Ohio State, finishes regular season 11-1. December 4th, Michigan wins the Big Ten. December 5th, Michigan makes the college football playoff. Harbaugh is justified to want competitive pay. And this is in response to Mel Tucker's 10-year, $100 million contract. I think it's 10 years, $90 million or something like that. John McClane, it's an interesting name. Isn't that the guy from Die Hard? John McClane says, Jim Harbaugh has had more talent than Tucker and lost to him twice. To say he's earned anything over what Tucker has done at MSU is laughable. Except Mel Tucker didn't win the Big Ten, did he? Okay, Mel Tucker won. Well, Mel Tucker outcoached Harbaugh last year. Or maybe he didn't outcoach Harbaugh as much as Michigan's team in 2020 just stunk. Just absolutely stunk. Bad attitude. Not calling any specific players out, but it just seems like there was bad attitude across the board. So, yeah. So, I mean, Mel Tucker has beaten Michigan in 2020 when Michigan was very, very bad. And, you know, honestly, so was Michigan State. But then Mel Tucker beat Michigan this year. And I will give their offense props. They turned it on fourth quarter. And that was awesome. That was I texted, I can't remember if I texted Dad or if I texted a buddy of mine. Oh yeah, I texted a buddy of mine and I said, dude, like, I'm not even mad that we just lost to Michigan State. That was a great game. And it was. Both teams looked very, very good. Michigan State obviously had the last laugh. And then I've been very open and said, many times on this show that I think Michigan State won the game. They were given the point threshold anyway to win the game by the refs making that really bad call with Aiden Hutchinson's sack fumble for a touchdown recovery. There's no precedent for a shin being down, but whatever, it happened. So, you know, that Michigan State game, I think, is controversial to say the least. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Mel Tucker's 2-0 against Harbaugh. That's fine. That's fine. Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M beat Nick Saban. But where's Nick Saban right now? And where's Texas A&M? Mel Tucker has done a wonderful job with Michigan State, and I'm really interested to see what they're going to be like next year because, you know, they have a chance to either be just as good or potentially fall a little bit because, as I've said, you can't build consistency around the transfer portal. I don't think you can. I mean, just prove me wrong. Feel free to prove me wrong. Let's see what happens. Here's a tweet on it. Michigan football hot takes with the tweet. Transfer portal talent level definitely increasing this year as compared to years in the past. College football free agency even more important now. If Mel Tucker goes into the transfer portal and comes out with a really good team, then more power to him. Carson Hinsman announcing that he's committed to Ohio State. People are talking about college basketball right now, but I'm still stuck on college football. I don't want to talk about college basketball. Oklahoma wide receiver Mario Williams has entered the transfer portal. Good. I've seen Caleb Williams also entered the transfer portal too. And that's really interesting to me just because Oklahoma is, you know, still on the way to the SEC. And there was a rumor that they were trying to go with an early entry into the SEC, but I think they're still planning on 2024 or 2025. I can't remember. PJ Mustafer from Penn State announces that he's coming back for his fifth-year senior year. So that's good for him. Scott Bell from Michigan, he's a Michigan reporter, talking about Jim Harbaugh's contract negotiation, whatever's going on with the NFL talk, says, stop acting like this wasn't inevitable. Jim Harbaugh, with a 71% Big Ten win percentage, one Big Ten title, two Big Ten East titles, two Big Ten East titles. No, I think it's just one Big Ten East title. Because I'm pretty sure they've only beaten Ohio State the one time. Two Big Ten East titles. That's got to be a typo. Anyway, annual salary, $4 million. Wow, only $4 million. James Franklin has a 60% Big Ten win percentage, one Big Ten title, one Big Ten East title, and his annual salary is $8.5 million. Mel Tucker, however, is sitting pretty at just over 56% of his Big Ten win percentage. Annual salary, $9.5 million. Yeah, so, and it's not at all like, I'm not going to sit here and say that James Franklin and Mel Tucker don't deserve those contracts. I mean, James Franklin is looking a little suspect over there, because he's been there for far longer. But like, you know, if I were Michigan State's head coach and my team just went 2-4, and then the next season I took them 11 and they went 10-2 regular season, won the Peach Bowl, so 11-2 overall with wins against, you know, Michigan, their biggest rival, and a New Year's Six Bowl win, then yeah, I mean, Mel Tucker got that contract before the season was over, though. That's the only thing that was a little weird to me, because I mean, you don't know how the season's going to end. $9.5 million, though. Is it just me, or does it seem like contracts across the board for college football coaches is just skyrocketed, just absolutely skyrocketed? James Franklin, though, at 60% and $8.5 million a year, that's suspect. Because what he's been in the Big Ten for 1 or 2 years longer than Jim Harbaugh. So I don't know. Ooh, looks like the Red Wings are winning. It's pretty good. Pretty cool. Like that. The fact that there's people out there, this is from Amelia on Twitter. She says, the fact that there's people out there who truly believe Aiden Hutchinson isn't a good player blows my mind. Yeah, it blows our mind too. Reddit College Football says LSU almost had the interception, but it bounced off their fingers. That's great. That's great. All right. Let's see what else we've got on here. So it looks like there was a something going on with the Michigan basketball game tonight. One of the players got a little chippy, and one of Michigan's players actually had to be restrained during the post game. So just going to take a quick look at this. I don't think you can hear it, but I'll try and describe what's going on. So players are shaking hands, and Michigan freshman Musa Diabate, I don't know, is being restrained. There are players yelling at him. Michigan players are restraining him. He's clearly yelling at the Rutgers Rutgers team, dragging him off of the court. Well, not dragging him; they're more pushing him. He's on his feet. Interesting. Yeah, not really sure what happened there. There's something really strange going on with this year's Michigan basketball team. For whatever reason, I mean, they're 7-6 now. Not even really looking like an NIT team. and they just got handled by Rutgers. So who knows? Sources from Madden Rittenberg. Wake Forest is close to finalizing an agreement with Purdue defensive coordinator Brad Lambert for the same role, defensive coordinator. Lambert dramatically improved Purdue's defense this fall after overseeing the nation's number 2 defense at Marshall in 2020. Wow. Why would you go from Purdue to Wake Forest? Oh, probably because Wake Forest was closer to winning their conference than Purdue was, which makes sense. Oh, they're talking about Michigan on ESPN right now. Talking about Alabama. There's some weird rap thing going on the thing right now. Huh, weird. Michigan State wide receiver Jaden Reed is returning for his senior year. Good for him. Quarterback toss is a nice lead up to LSU's offensive drive. We know LSU has at least one backup in the stands. Yeah, they were winning that little game that they play during the commercial breaks and stuff like that. They were that particular player was playing very, very well. Kansas State on the board 7-0. Oh, this is from a while ago. All right, let's see. Let's do a little refresh here. John U. Bacon, who has written some of the best bios, and I don't know exactly what you call them, but some of the best books about Michigan football. He says, yes, I've heard rumblings about Harbaugh going to the NFL, but I've heard those 100 times before and they've never amounted to anything. Doesn't mean they couldn't this time. Never say never in college football, but I've heard nothing concrete to convince me of any change is imminent. There you go. Jeremiah says, my thoughts on Jim Harbaugh leaving, because we're still at halftime, and I'm not even convinced I'm going to continue streaming for the second half. So, Jeremiah says, my thoughts on Jim Harbaugh leaving. I do believe he would leave U of M now because he has fixed his legacy somewhat by beating Ohio State and winning the Big Ten and making the playoffs. I believe he thinks he did enough to fix Michigan that he can go back to the NFL. I hope he stays at Michigan. I don't agree. He hasn't fixed his legacy at Michigan because he's only beaten Ohio State once. He's going to be known as the coach who lost 7 times and then finally got his win and then ditched before he could lose again if he leaves now. Now, who knows? He might lose again next year, but if he stays, at least they can say that he didn't try, or at least they can't say he didn't try. That said, the guy's got a sweet gig at Michigan. Now, I've heard rumors that his family wants to go out back out west. I have my thoughts, feelings, and opinions on California right now, but I'm looking outside at a 7 inches of snow on the ground. We're expecting a snowstorm again, and I won't lie, 75 and sunny in San Diego sounds very nice to me right now. But, of course, he wouldn't be going to San Diego. He'd probably be going to Las Vegas or something. But that being said, I also wouldn't necessarily leave any job that was paying me $4 million a year. And I understand that's low, but I come from the background a background that emphasized saving money and being responsible and understanding when enough money is enough money. And $4 million a year would be enough money for me. So that being said, I wouldn't leave Michigan, despite how many unfortunate snowstorms we get in a year. Stroud called his run that didn't count his Heisman moment. People forget that. I don't understand what he means. Hunt SZN. I don't understand what that means. Hawkeye Elvis, I literally just got home from the Citrus Bowl and found this amazing gift package from ESPN College Football. Thank you all so much. Sweet. Looks like football. They got a college-sized football, some paraphernalia from the game, a Yeti cooler. Sweet. A projector. Okay, remind me to go to the Citrus Bowl next year. Some college football stuff. Some other or college basketball stuff. The Ohio State University Marching Band tweets, taking you into the stands for the Jackson Smith Njigba touchdown that gave Ohio State a fourth quarter lead in the Rose Bowl. Hashtag Go Bucks. Can't really tell what's going on because none of them are, well, I'm not actually watching the video. I'm just watching the preview. Oh, I see. All of them were super excited that he scored. And then they were like, oh, yeah, we got to play the fight song now. That's funny. From redshirt freshman Luke Whippler, soaking it all in after Ohio State's victory. Luke Whippler is sitting on the bench at bowl, just taking it all in. And he deserves it. It was a great game. I mean, Ohio State had no business winning that game coming out of the half, and then they did it. That's pretty awesome. Great, great look for the Big Ten. Josh Gaddis, Michigan's offensive coordinator, tweeting that Michigan or America's team will be back 143, referencing Team 143, which is next year's team 143. Me reading reports of Harbaugh's interest in the Raiders job, and it's a picture of Harbaugh grimacing. Oh, yeah. I don't know if anyone saw this. There's some news coming out about Urban Meyer. So there is, I can't remember who the player was, but he came out and said that Urban Meyer was straight up racist or something like that. Now, I have no idea if he was or wasn't because I wasn't there, obviously. But if he wasn't, then that's, you don't say something like that. You don't just call out something like that. Urban Meyer has probably already destroyed his own career at this point, unless, of course, he goes to the Saban Coaching Rehab Center, Nick Saban Coaching Rehab Center, and does some offensive coordinator stuff for Alabama, which is possible. Who knows? But so Outkick the Coverage has a tweet from, or a quote rather, from B Carp. I don't know who B Carp is because I don't know people. Bobby Carpenter is the guy. That's his tweet right there. So I'm looking at it, but I couldn't tell who it was because they just had his handle there. He says, quote, I was happy to see other teammates, former OSU players who played under Urban, come out and say, listen, this just isn't true. On Marcus Williamson's racism allegations. Yeah, if it's not true, then I don't understand why Marcus Williamson would be saying something like that. I don't. And that's unfortunate that he would do that. Now, it's not like this is going to be the thing that ruins Urban Meyer's career. It might make it worse if people believe the allegations over the truth. But Urban Meyer has already done quite enough to ruin his own career. Yeah. And you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and call it there. We're a little over an hour at this point. I'm tired. It's 11 o'clock here Eastern, and I'm sure this game's just getting out of half. I don't understand why they schedule it for so late. Maybe it was a delayed game or something like that. But I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the game. If you're watching it or if you're watching this late and you did watch the game, I hope that you enjoyed the game. Don't really care who wins, but there you go. Anyway, thanks for hanging out and have a great rest of your night. Bye.